And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Friday, October 25th. We have reached the end of the first work week of the NBA season. I'm Josh Engleman. You can see it on the screen right now. Follow me on Twitter if you want. Hit the like button as you get in the door. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. Interesting night yesterday. I only had one lineup really break free. Had some guys not be what I was looking for. Bub Carrington in particular. Didn't need him to start. Probably would have had a much better day if that news didn't come out. Ended up getting to a little bit more of him than was probably what I was looking for. Sports betting side went great. DFS side was fine, I guess. Best you could hope for. Chet was insane. I did not see that coming. Chet was absolutely amazing. I really didn't have him. That's not going to be helpful when he's the highest scorer on the slate. But man, oh man, did he look good. Jokic, not as involved offensively as I would have expected. Assumed a couple extra shots. I didn't enjoy Russell Westbrook taking 6 threes for that team. That's insane. There's no reason that he should be taking as many threes as Jokic. I had him under 0.5 threes made, and that dickhead made his last 3. He was 0 for 5 and then made his 6th. So that was pretty frustrating. Jordan Poole shot the lights out in the first quarter. That went away. Wouldn't have been so bad. Jordan Poole totally failed after that hot start. Except he had at least 5 stocks, which is the frustrating part of all of it. The scoring died. I think Boston realized what they were doing and were like, well, we don't want Jordan Poole to be that guy any longer. Slowed him down quite a bit in comparison to the first quarter. But 5 stocks killed it. Wemby was awful. That did not go well in any way. Clay shot the ball really well, so that was nice. Anything else that I thought was interesting? Naz Reid, really big game off the bench. He had 40 plus. He was pretty necessary. Lively was fantastic. Even not starting, which was weird. Anybody else? Oh, Champagne on San Antonio was the only thing I got right. I had like 50-something% of him yesterday, and he was absolutely necessary. But yeah, I had 50+% of him, so that was incredibly helpful. But Bub Carrington was less helpful. Carrington was definitely less helpful. I think that's it. Derek White cooled off late. He was off to a really hot start early. Randall was really good for Minnesota. That's probably it, right? I guess Aaron Wiggins had 28 fantasy points. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, Keegan Murray, big day. Sacramento couldn't get it done, though. You know what the big thing we should talk about is? Should be pretty obvious. It's on the screen right now. $1 single to get our NBA core package. That is the promo that we are running to start off this NBA season. And you will get our NBA core package until October 29th. Through October 29th, you'll get everything for $1. That's projections, ownership, our boom bust tool, and then our simulation package. Our single lineup simulator, which is absolutely my favorite thing on the site. Our regular sims, our post-contest sims. Anything you could look for on the NBA side, we've got it. If you're interested in NBA DFS, if you're watching this video and you haven't signed up, I don't totally understand why. It's $1. If you hate it, you can cancel at any point in time during this first week. The only thing you're going to be out is $1. You're not stuck with us in any way if you do not want to be. But for $1, why not take advantage? Get all of this data. Maybe you could use our avatar. Go to stokastic.com/avatar for that. Put our logo on for DraftKings or FanDuel. Finish in the top 3 of a contest with at least 5,000 entries. You get a free month. So you can come in for $1, use the data, potentially cash out an extra month for free, get some extra cash in your account as well, and see what we have to offer. So you guys see the banner, or not banner, you see the big ad on the screen. Tipoff24 is the promo code. There's a link in the description of this video. All you have to do is click it. It'll take you straight over to Stokastic. It should load the promo code immediately. On the off chance it doesn't, again, Tipoff24. Enter that code in, and you will get our NBA core package for $1 single. Take advantage, guys. For real. Jake Nunley with the super chat. Thanks, Josh, for the years of content and advice. Got the promo. It helped me turn $3 into $2,000 last night. Put me in the Hall of Fame, boys. Let's run it back. I love to see it, man. Jake, it's been great seeing you around these parts for ages. And now for you to take the promo and then grab yourself 2 G's. I mean, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I can't have a better testimonial for it to start off the show. So congrats, man. It's really awesome to see. It really, really is. Ooh, one other thing. Has nothing to do with this promo. Got really lucky yesterday. So I had a 2-pick prize picks card of Russ, I think points plus rebounds under, which came in and won. And then the second play was Spencer Dinwiddie. I think it was under points, but it doesn't matter. Under something. And he wasn't a part of the rotation. So it was looking like that was going to end up just getting disregarded because Dinwiddie wasn't going to play. Shout out to the final end of the game, baby. Dude got some blowout run, played for like a minute or something, got some stats, got on the floor, and was able to cash that out. We got super duper lucky on Dinwiddie not being a part of shit. So OKC is really, really good. And I don't think Denver's very good. I put that out there opening night, before that game ever happened on Tuesday. I put out my predictions for regular season records. I am extra special down on Denver during the regular season. I don't think they have enough depth. So I'm interested to see where the rest of their season goes. Bug Boy hit us with the super chat. The fate of Denver studs worked like a charm. Well, they don't have studs. They only have one stud. So right away, incorrect in your message. Wish someone in chat would have suggested it yesterday. # ball knower. I mean, if you want to jerk yourself off over Jokic having 60.5 fantasy points on DraftKings, you can do that. I mean, really, the only thing you're saying is Chet Holmgren was better than Jokic. So, like, Jokic had the third most fantasy points on the slate. Scored 60 on DraftKings. Well, those guys aren't studs, man. Michael Porter Jr. is not a stud. Aaron Gordon's not a stud. It's not how that works. You might be a ball knower, but you were willing to pay $5 to be wrong on this show. So what does that say? Let's talk basketball, shall we? We have 10 games to get through. We'll be able to zip through it pretty quickly because there's not a lot to talk about. Andrew Martinez. We're only ever going to really be able to build any lineups on short slates. So probably like Tuesdays and Thursdays, we'll be able to really dig into the tools starting next week. On days like this, there's just too many games. All right, here we go. Let's get the ad off the screen. Don't forget to sign up. And hit that like button if you're here. That helps out a ton. Here we go, folks. Game number 1. The Brooklyn Nets are 11.5-point underdogs in Orlando. 215.5 total. I'm going to say this now. I like Brooklyn in the points. So this is one of the lines that I like a little bit more than others. I'm guessing people won't be super fond of this one, but I recommend taking the points with Brooklyn. So let's look at Brooklyn now. I'm guessing we get like normal Nick Claxton today in comparison to what we got on opening night. I don't think that it matters at all. He doesn't look very good. I figure Ben Simmons is probably sitting in that like 24-minute range. I don't think he looks very good. The best option that I see on Brooklyn for today is going to be Cam Johnson. I got him in for 32 minutes. He's 5,600 on DraftKings. He's 5,400 on FanDuel. I think he's the best point per dollar play on the Nets. He showed up in the optimal lineup on FanDuel for me 10% of the time. He showed up in the optimal lineup on DraftKings for me 11% of the time. After that, we got to remember, there's 10 games. Like, if it's I want to just holistic thought, it's a 10-game slate. Everybody that like plays a bunch is in play. So like you can roster Cam Thomas and Dennis Schroeder and Cam Johnson obviously to me is the best play from Brooklyn. On Orlando, like Banchero, Franz, KCP, Wendell Carter Jr., Suggs, like these guys are all in play. But I'm going to try to focus a little bit more on the guys that definitely stand out. If you're somebody that plays like 26 plus minutes and your price tag isn't broken, you are a guy that can be rostered. If you don't hear me say their name, they're just a guy for today. So I just want to be clear here. That's what that looks like. So I think Cam Johnson is the guy you want the most from Brooklyn. I don't love too much else from this Brooklyn team. I think Dorian Finney-Smith and Jalen Wilson are both like okay value options on DK. I think Dennis Schroeder looks okay on FanDuel just because you have to roster 2 point guards. There's not a lot here, though, for Brooklyn. This is the game that I have with the lowest pace by a lot. This is the game with the lowest total on the slate. It's not the best game in the world to target for DFS. And Orlando games are rarely going to be that kind of game, but Brooklyn also plays pretty slow as well. So I don't want to go too crazy here, but Cam Johnson is the guy you want. Yeah, S&P. I can't imagine that holds that extreme. Just because it shouldn't. But point taken, that's for sure. Now on the Orlando side, really, really difficult to want to get to anything with volume here. Paolo is definitely the best guy that you can get to from Orlando. 8,700 on DraftKings, 9,100 on FanDuel. Had a really nice opening night. MPE on FanDuel as well helps. Only 8% optimal on FanDuel, though. 5% on the DraftKings side. No overwhelming, like, gotta have this dude. No exceptional chalk or anything. On the DK side, I think it's like Paolo, Franz, and Wendell Carter Jr. I think you're a little bit more open to like KCP or Suggs on FanDuel, but there's just not a lot of volume here. And that should not be surprising to anyone at all. This is just not that kind of game. So we're starting with a game that has the lowest total and lowest pace out of anything. It's not that exciting. Game 2 is the Philadelphia 76ers. 4.5 point favorites in Toronto. 219.5 total. Now, this one, we obviously know some things are going to be a little bit different. As I look at it, no Joel Embiid, no Paul George. Caleb Martin is probable for the Raptors. No Bruce Brown, no Kelly Olynyk. RJ Barrett is doubtful. Emmanuel Quickley is doubtful. This Toronto team is pretty rough. Not the fastest paced game in the world. Toronto plays a little bit faster than Philly. Really low total, though. This is one of 3 games with a sub 220 total. If we look at it on the Philly end, it gets a little tricky. So I think KJ Martin looks pretty good on DraftKings again at 3,800. And he's fine as a value on FanDuel at 3,900. Got the start opening night. Did not play nearly as many minutes as you would expect. but did have a pretty solid plus minus. Caleb Martin, on the other hand, played a bunch of minutes off the bench, but was like negative 15. I don't know how much to read into that yet. Those minutes are kind of tough between those two guys. I'm probably a little high on KJ Martin, so your mileage may vary there, but I think he kind of looks like the best option from Philly on DK just because of that $3,800 price tag. That's really nice value. Maxi's fine. Looks a little bit better to me on FanDuel than he does on DraftKings, but not by anything crazy. I think Philly in general looks a little bit better on FanDuel than they do on DraftKings. Not by a lot, but just enough. Just enough. A little bit more optimal on FanDuel than they are on DK. I don't have any like crazy loves here. We did see Yabusele have a bit of a price increase. He's up to $4K now on DraftKings. So basically off the table, $4,500 on FanDuel. Him and Drummond played like 2 minutes alongside of each other. I figure you're getting like 28-20, 29-19, something like that at the 5. Maybe they play another minute or two alongside of each other. Drummond looks all right on FanDuel at $6,900. Oubre looks fine. No overwhelming priorities from Philly, though, is where I'm at. Let's see. What else do we have here? Checking out chat. Alrighty. Let's check out Toronto, because this team's a bit of a problem for me, particularly on the FanDuel side. I had a lot of Scotty Barnes opening night. Evan Mobley erased him from the universe. Probably going to have a little bit better of an option today for Scotty Barnes against Philly. He's 8,800 on DraftKings, 9K on FanDuel, 8% optimal on DK. 15% optimal on FanDuel with that MPE. I fully anticipate Scotty Barnes being a guy that I get to quite a bit. Pathora, just out of curiosity, because you're wrong, why isn't Drummond playing more than 25 minutes? For reference sake, Andre Drummond played 25 minutes in the opener. Not entirely sure why he wouldn't be playing more than that. Pretty confident he would close. So there's 2.5 minutes more. That's 28. But yeah, I mean, somebody's got to close at center for the Sixers. And I don't care what Yabusele did in opening night. It's not him. So, yeah, anyway. Drummond will not be playing less than 25 minutes, barring foul trouble. But Scotty Barnes on FanDuel is the best thing we've seen so far. I also had too much Jakob Poeltl on opening night. I also think Jakob Poeltl looks really good on FanDuel again at 5,900. Probably a good enough spot for him. It's a traditional center. He doesn't have to do as much weird shit with Drummond out on the floor. Not that Jared Allen isn't a traditional center as well, but a little different than Drummond. Drummond's definitely not leaving the inner paint area. Bug Boy, his minutes just kind of scare me a little bit. He's never been like a 30-plus guy. I think it's a lot easier for him to have less minutes than more minutes, and that kind of brings down my expectation for him. I mean, I already love him at 29, so there's that. After that, Grady Dick, Davion Mitchell, Ochai Agbaji. I thought Davion Mitchell might end up being really crazy, particularly on FanDuel, where he's $1,000 cheaper. Doesn't appear to be the case, but I'm guessing he's going to get a shit ton of minutes with Emmanuel quickly out. They're just out of bodies, and Mitchell played a decent amount in the opener. Yes, Jake Puddle, 13% optimal on FanDuel, 5,900. Shout out Game of Zones. Anything else you guys want me to touch on for Philly and Toronto? We're not really starting off with the two best games. Very surprised to see Bug Boy let us know that there is no substance to his argument. Just in case anybody is ever curious why you shouldn't listen to Bug Boy. Hit that like button, by the way. Yeah, S&P. I don't think they had a choice. I think the ball just has to be in his hands because they don't have enough hands. Charlotte Hornets. 5.5-point dogs in Atlanta. 223 total. Unfortunately for us in this one, Charlotte is going to be without Brandon Miller, who got hurt in the opener. Josh Green is questionable. And then Salawan, or however the hell you say it, is also questionable. There's a lot to like here for Charlotte because of no Brandon Miller. Cody Martin's 3,700 on DraftKings. He's 4,600 on FanDuel, which is bonkers. But Martin at 3,700, point guard small forward eligible. Cody Martin's the best play. Min Cash Merchant. It's pronounced Salon. Thank you. Not a guy that I have a ton of background on, I'm going to be honest. So, Cody Martin's the best play on DraftKings for Charlotte, and one of the better plays you're going to find today just because of that value. He's going to be a guy that makes a lot of stuff work. I figure he's still playing in and around 28 minutes. Maybe that gets cut into a little bit if you're a bigger believer in Josh Green and they're going to take some minutes away from like Misic or something. They could take those minutes away from Mann. I think Mann looks interesting as well today at 4,300. A little bit of a confusing team for Charlotte. The thing you want the most, though, in terms of like real plays, is LaMelo Ball on DraftKings at 9,300. I like the matchup, although he is going to have a real unfun time if Dyson Daniels is going to like match his minutes. So while I do like LaMelo quite a bit, he is getting a date with Dyson Daniels today, and that's usually not good. Dyson Daniels isn't good at much, but defensively, he is borderline elite. So if that scares you at all, I get it. Like, if you're not particularly a LaMelo person, having Dyson Daniels on the opposite side for 30-plus minutes is really not a fun time. Maybe he gets into foul trouble. I doubt it. LaMelo, not that kind of guy, usually. Now, 10-1 on FanDuel for LaMelo is a little bit less obtainable, but he still showed up 10% optimal, which was more than anybody else on Charlotte for me. Bridges, Curry, Nick Richards again, I guess, but like not nearly as much as it was 2 nights ago. Charlotte looks good. Like, this is a decent spot. Atlanta plays fast, so this is a pretty sizable pace up spot for Charlotte. I have Charlotte gaining. Ooh, I could add that. Let's do this. So that's going to be, we look up this here and get that, and then subtract this. Nice. All right. So yeah, Charlotte gains like a possession over their average. And then a little bit of a pace down spot for Atlanta. They lose 2 possessions below their average. Yeah, Gab, I don't think that's how it works. I'm not saying LaMelo can't be good. I don't want that to be the case, but like, a date with Dyson Daniels is one of the least fun dates you can get. So Maybe that leads to like Miles Bridges being a little bit more interesting for Charlotte if LaMelo can't totally get it done. Could lead to LaMelo just barfing up a ton of terrible stuff. Summing up Charlotte, LaMelo Ball across both sites, Cody Martin pretty heavily on the DraftKings side. And then you definitely want to mix and match your Bridges, your Currys, your Mans. There's a lot to like here. Duke, good eye. Apparently I gave Cody Zeller the minutes instead of Onyeka Okongwu. So, good eye. Good eye, Duke. We would have noticed that one pretty quickly. Yeah, S&P, that is definitely something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Does he have a points prop? All right, Charlotte. Nah, no points prop on Trey Mann yet. Let me see if there's one on any of the like janky books. He could probably use a little bit of a usage bump on my end. That's what's great about this show. Look, it's hard. Look, every little detail of every player, it takes a while to acquire that kind of shit over the first couple of weeks. So you guys dropping in tidbits and stuff, man, I am in for that kind of stuff. Appreciate you guys for it. And S&P, you know. Yeah, no props on man anywhere right now. Christopher Falter, when using the tools, do you care about ownership when building lineups? It's the most important thing. But individual ownership isn't all that important. Ownership for your entire lineup is the bigger driver. Well, yeah, of course, Bug Boy. You're the one that let me know that your information is shit. You can't be telling me you have no substance to your argument because you've looked at nothing and then have me be like, yeah, that's a great idea. Listen to Bug Boy. All right, Gab, 0 for 2. Truly, 0 for 2. That's off to a hell of a start. Cam Thomas sure didn't give a hoot about Dyson Daniels. Okay. I'm not sure Cam Thomas knows who other players are. He has one thing in his mind. I'm going to shoot on this possession. No matter where I am, no matter how guarded I am, I'm going to get some shots up. CG, has the guy that played Lonnie Walker been back in chat since day one? Yeah, he showed up the next day. Although I assume his bankroll is getting a little thin. All right, Atlanta. Ignore the blank optimal columns for Onyeka Okongwu. You probably don't want to play him on FanDuel either, where he's $6,600, $1,400 more expensive than Clint Capella. I think if you're going to Atlanta, the first guy you're going to is the guy that I mentioned that's going to be on the opposite side of LaMelo Ball. That's going to be Dyson Daniels. 4,600 on DraftKings, 14% optimal. 5,200 on FanDuel, 15% optimal. He's starting. There's no Bogdan Bogdanovic, so there's potentially even more playing time to go around. He just looks really good. Offensively, he's awful. He has no offensive skill whatsoever, but he is one of the best defensive players in the league. He's just going to be out there for really big minutes. And I think for most of this season, or at least until they find out his offense can't hang, when Bogdan Bogdanovic is out, he's just going to be in the lineup. So Dyson Daniels is the best guy you can get to from Atlanta. DeAndre Hunter on DraftKings, though, is not too far behind at 4,700. Small forward, power forward, should play around 30 minutes. Just a really nice piece that fits in your lineups in any build you're looking for. 4,700 just works as a salary. I have no problem getting to Jalen Johnson. I like him tremendously more on FanDuel than I do on DraftKings. The MPE on FanDuel is perfect. That is what you want to get to. I'll never have a problem getting to Trae Young. I doubt he's a priority. I like LaMelo Ball more than I like Trae Young. So he's already up against it, already being like the non-preferred pay up in this game. Again, it's Trae Young. He could just smash and be good. So Capella started the first game. Okongwu closed. I don't think that we should have a single bit of confidence in what they're going to do in the fourth quarter regularly. So I went 24-24 on Capella Okongwu. You want to go 22 Capella, 26 Okongwu? I think that's very reasonable. I just don't think that you're going to be looking to Okongwu all that much, other than the fact that he has that power forward eligibility on DK. Don't have much interest in like Risa Shea or anything. I figure, I think Garrison Matthews probably soaks up a little bit of that Bogdanovich time, get some shooting on there. It could be Vit Krejci pulling a couple extra minutes. Shouldn't really matter for these bench guys on a 10-game slate. Is ownership out yet? Sure is. 15 minutes ago. Bingo bango. Let's drop the ownership in the sheet. And I'll cycle back to the first couple games that we looked at and compare to what we have. By the way, Dyson Daniels, highest owned guy on DraftKings right now. So looks like I was looking pretty good here. All right, so on Brooklyn, guy getting the most ownership is Ben Simmons on FanDuel at 16%. I anticipate that coming down a little bit, although the position's great. No other ownership really coming into Brooklyn. Jalen Suggs is aggressively owned right now. And that's going to come down for sure. He will not be 31% owned on DK, but he is going to pull a little bit of ownership. I think he looks good. 31% is not going to happen for a point guard only guy. The price is really nice though for Suggs at 4,800, but anticipate that number coming down a bit. Banchero is the guy that's getting some ownership, and I don't think that's going to be all that shocking. Philly and Toronto. Maxey getting a little bit of love. I mean, we have Kelly Oubre 50% owned on FanDuel and 28% owned on DraftKings. On the surface, I think both of those numbers come down considerably as the day goes on. Although I am aggressively light on Kelly Oubre right now. So what I'm going to do is tweak Kelly Oubre's minutes a little bit. He is going to be way more owned than I first anticipated when we went through this. It appears that I'm a little light on Kelly Oubre's minutes. So be aware that Oubre looks better than he did when I first went through Philly. Once again, I will remind everybody that talent doesn't matter. This is a game that involves pricing. This is an optimization problem. If you think someone stinks, that's probably a testament to your skill set here. Toronto, pulling a bunch of ownership. 16% for Scotty Barnes on DraftKings, 28% on FanDuel. Completely agree. 22% ownership coming into Davion Mitchell on FanDuel. He's $4,200. He's $1,100 cheaper on DraftKings. He should be getting a bunch of ownership. No, quickly. 22% ownership coming into Jakob Poeltl. So I pointed him out, and it does appear that the public is going that direction as well. And then for Charlotte and Atlanta, massive ownership coming into Cody Martin on DK. There is ownership coming into Trey Mann. I'm guessing I'm going to end up bumping Trey Mann's usage rate, and he'll end up coming up a little bit in my optimal. LaMelo getting the love on DK, fully expected. Dyson Daniels, as we mentioned, heavy ownership. So, Gab, just out of curiosity, when you see all of the best players in the world in DFS playing sizable amounts of Dyson Daniels, when you look at that, do you think, those guys must be dumb? Seems it, right? That would be the wrong way to do this. Play Dyson Daniels on both sites. He is probably the best overall play on the slate. Don't let anybody tell you different. Jalen Johnson, 7,700 on FanDuel, 22% owned, looking great. I am going to have to pick up the pace here big time. We're on game 4, and I have 25 minutes before the NFL show. Hit the like button, everybody. We're about to move real quick. I'm about to sound like I am an auctioneer. Give me 20, 25, 26, 7. I don't think I'd be a very good auctioneer. Detroit Pistons, 10.5 point dogs in Cleveland, 227 total. Only one person on Detroit has double-digit ownership on either site. That's going to be Tobias Harris at 13% on FanDuel. I completely agree with it. He looks good. Wow, that is the take of all takes. That is just next level garbage. Good to see. I think Cade Cunningham's getting slept on. Unowned on DraftKings, unowned on FanDuel. Is he going to have a bad day, against a decent Cleveland defense? Yeah, but 4% owned and 3% owned? I think Cade Cunningham is the contrarian pay-up-ish option so far. So, I like Cade. Tobias looks solid. I will not be rostering anything else from Detroit. At least I don't think so. On the Cleveland side, they are largely unowned on DK. 6% ownership to Jared Allen is the high mark. Everything that I just said about about Cade Cunningham is the same for Donovan Mitchell. I think he is underowned. 8,700 for Mitchell, and obviously the matchup looks amazing. I really like the idea of getting to a contrarian Donovan Mitchell. It is, but if no one can get to the rim, that's going to cut off a lot of lanes and might make life a little bit more difficult. Now, the spot we need to talk about here in this game is Cleveland on FanDuel. 20% ownership to $6,300 Darius Garland. Way cheaper on FanDuel. 19% ownership coming into Jared Allen. He also has the power forward eligibility on FanDuel, so that unlocks him. You get 10% of Mobley. You get 10% of LeVert. And then you get that underowned Donovan Mitchell again. So I like Mitchell in tournaments quite a bit. I think Garland's ownership on FanDuel is correct. I think Jared Allen's ownership on FanDuel is correct. I think Cleveland is a team you have to pay attention to quite a bit on the FanDuel side. DraftKings, not so much. Okay, we made it through that game pretty quickly, and it's not a game that has a ton to talk about, so that feels good. But Garland, FanDuel, that's something we want. Indiana Pacers, 5.5 point dogs in New York, 227 total. If you're betting this game, my recommendation is to lay the points with the Knicks. The highest owned guy on Indiana right now is Miles Turner at 4%. That's either site, DK or FanDuel. I think Tyrese Halliburton for 8,500 on FanDuel is pretty massively underowned. He's right in that same bucket with Donovan Mitchell and with Cade Cunningham. I'm starting to think FanDuel is looking like a more of a balanced build than a stars and scrubs build, but we'll see. Everything that I'm seeing here in the data, though, is that we're not really going to be rostering the Indiana Pacers on either site. They have 5% total ownership on DraftKings and 9% on FanDuel. This team is unowned. Full stop, unowned. So if you like the Pacers, by all means, go to the starters if you want. I see nothing here that we're going to be prioritizing. Halliburton on FanDuel is a GPP play. Now the Knicks. Oh, New York. So still no Precious Achiuwa. Weird rotations in the first game. Probably didn't help that Boston kicked the shit out of them. So we have quite a bit of ownership coming into the Knicks. Call it 10 to 15% on Brunson, Towns, Hart, and McBride. And then on FanDuel, it's Brunson, Bridges, Towns, and Hart. A little bit less so on McBride because he's more expensive there. So as I'm looking at this one, $8,600 Brunson on DK, $8,800 on FanDuel. He's getting the ownership, but like Halliburton isn't, Mitchell isn't, Cade isn't. I kind of like those guys a little bit more than Brunson if Brunson's just the one that's getting the love. At the same time, we know that Andrew Nembhard cannot guard Jalen Brunson. That was found out pretty quickly in the playoffs last year. So if Brunson's getting Nembhard again, maybe this goes well for him. If you're playing Bridges, you're playing him on FanDuel where he's $600 cheaper. I really like Towns on both sites. I think Towns might be like the best play on FanDuel. 7,700 for Towns on FanDuel. He's 17% owned. I had him at 18% optimal. One of my favorite plays today. And then I'm happy to get to Josh Hart. 5,700 DK, 5,800 FanDuel. Has to be involved. They're out of bodies. They don't have enough wings. I like getting to the Knicks. 1, the Pacers defense stinks. 2, this is a pace-up spot for New York. 3, they're going to be jamming these guys in massive, massive minutes. I'm going to have a lot of the New York Knicks today. But if I'm getting one thing from this game, it's Karl Anthony Towns on FanDuel. All right, halfway point, even though we have 18 minutes to go, hit that like button. Memphis Grizzlies, 2.5-point dogs in Houston, 222 total. Memphis still likely without Jaren Jackson, who's doubtful. Gigi Jackson out, Luke Kennard out, Vince Williams out. No ownership coming into this Memphis team. We have 10% ownership coming into Santi Aldama on DraftKings. The next highest mark across both sites is Marcus Smart at 5%. I think Marcus Smart is a little underowned on FanDuel at 5,100. Nothing too crazy. Decent chance I have his usage too high. Points props 11.5. Yeah, I probably have his usage a bit too high. I'm going to pull that down while we're on the show. Probably takes away my like true love of Marcus Smart. Take a chunk out of that. But yeah, I really am not seeing anything here from Memphis that's jumping out other than Aldama on DraftKings. I don't love Morant. I don't love Bane. I'm not sure these guys are playing like 35 or 36 minutes right now. They played 11 dudes in the opener, which is typical Memphis bullshit. I'm not really grabbing anything here from Memphis. I don't see it. And it's not much better on the Houston side either. Highest owned guy for Houston on DraftKings is 7% to Van Vliet. It's 10% to Jabari Smith on FanDuel. You know, I think Fred Van Vliet is probably a little underrepresented at 5% ownership. I think Jalen Green's probably a little underrepresented on FanDuel at 2% ownership. I'm not seeing any major priorities in Memphis and Houston. Just doesn't look that way. Yeah, look, Şengün, 8,800 DK, 9,200 FanDuel. I think he looks fine. I have a hard time wanting to pick him over Towns, though, giving pricing. But let me be very clear here. Any lineups that Alperen Şengün lands in, I'm very happy to see that name there. I'm just not entirely sure on a 10-game slate he's going to be a priority for me. Bulls Bucks. Woof. So there is some ownership coming into this one. It's heavy on the FanDuel end. Zach LaVine got to 13% ownership on DK. I think that's fully warranted. $7K for Zach LaVine on DraftKings, shooting guard, small forward. That's way too cheap. He should be a little bit more owned than that. But the real takeaway from Chicago is Josh Giddey on FanDuel, 6,100, point guard, shooting guard eligible. He's 35% owned. Maybe a little high, but I'm a believer here in his fantasy upside. And I'm not super worried about this current Milwaukee team, other than the fact that the Bulls suck. I like the under here a little bit, but the main thing you want in this game is Josh Giddey on FanDuel. Kobe White, 6,500. I think he looks pretty good. No Lonzo Ball in this one for Chicago. So a couple more minutes for the guards. I think they get a little bit of a bump. LaVine looked like the old T-Wolves version, Coach Chris says. It's almost like LaVine gets to play a little bit better when DeMar DeRozan isn't on the floor. Zach LaVine looked like he did for the Bulls before they got DeRozan, which was a borderline All-NBA player. I like Zach LaVine and I like Kobe White quite a bit on FanDuel. Don't even mind Vooch all that much on FanDuel. But Josh Giddey on FanDuel is the clear takeaway from Chicago. Milwaukee's the same sort of situation, though. Not all that interesting on DraftKings. Way more interesting on FanDuel. Michael Pavlik, Jalen Smith, one-off? Absolutely not. On a day like today, we should not be looking at that type of stuff. That's way too far off the beaten path. Highest owned guy for the Bucks on DK is Giannis at 9%. I actually think he's a little under-owned. 11-1, power forward center, and not a soul to be found on Chicago that can match up with him. Not that most teams have a Giannis guy, but like Chicago certainly doesn't. I can confidently say it's not Nikola Vucevic. As I look at this, though, it's FanDuel, where we want to pay a little bit more attention to Milwaukee. 15% ownership to Dame, 17% ownership to Giannis, and 22% ownership to Gary Trent Jr. Trent played massive minutes in their opener. He's 4,600. Shooting guard only, which is the only thing really hurting him on the FanDuel side. But I like him as a point per dollar option on FanDuel. The best value option for Milwaukee by far. I'm going to end up on Gary Trent. I had him on the opener. Had to cut his usage quite a bit today. It was non-existent in the opener. But Trent's going to have a bunch of open looks. And against what should be maybe the worst defense in the league, or at least something approximating that. I mean, Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Josh Giddey, Patrick Williams, Nikola Vucevic. That's at least four. That's basically like four well below average defensive players in the starting lineup. I think Gary Trent gets a lot of open looks tonight, and I think Giannis runs roughshod on this team. Evan Mobley breakout year incoming. Does Evan Mobley need to break out? I think he's already broken out. 3 to go. 12 minutes left. Hit that like button, folks. NFL strategy show coming up next. And before I continue, I do want to hit you guys with our schedule for the rest of the day. Because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 8 more shows today. NFL strategy with Lofty and Greg is coming up next at 10 a.m. Pick'em strategy with Eitan and Eric is at noon. NHL strategy coming up at 2. I'm back for the deeper dive at 4:45 today with Matt Bellman. Live before lock with Greg and Eric at 6. I'm on playback with Greg at 7. We're going to watch games from 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock, but then we're not done on playback. Greg and I are going to bail. Eitan is coming on with some other guys from Tails, and they're going to make some bets and hang out and watch some games and shoot the shit. So highly, highly, highly recommend you're sticking around, Stokastic. Make sure you hit the notification bell because we have a never-ending supply of shows. Golden State Warriors, 3-point favorites in Utah, 232 total. If I'm betting this game, I am betting Golden State. I'm laying the points, but I'm not going to jump into it immediately because we do have some question marks hanging out there. Q-tag on Steph, Q-tag on Draymond, Q-tag on DeAnthony Melton. Tough team to talk about to start. I think the first guy you're looking at, and really the only guy you're looking at on DraftKings from Golden State, if everybody's in, is going to be Trace Jackson Davis at 4,500. got the start at center. They went to the big lineup with Draymond at the 4, Trayce Jackson-Davis at the 5. I think Trayce Jackson-Davis looks really good here, and I understand why the ownership is coming in the way that it does. On the FanDuel side, it's Jonathan Kuminga getting the ownership at 16%. Honestly, it feels a little over-owned to me. Draymond getting a little bit of love on FanDuel, 6,200 power forward center. Worried about his minutes. I don't think he's going to be playing massive minutes. I only have him in for 26. I don't like the ownership to Draymond, but he could definitely carve up this Utah team, drop like an 8-8-8 with a couple of defensive stats, and he could certainly look good. But we need some news here. I'm hoping that we get one of these guys out and we can get some late swap value later on tonight, because this one's a 9:30 tip-off. But for right now, it all depends on the status of Steph and Draymond and DeAnthony Melton. We could end up with a ton of value here for Golden State. Too many question marks right now to really dig into it. What I can say is that Utah, probably not going to roster them. They don't have a single player on either site 10% owned or more. 9% to Walker Kessler on DraftKings is the high mark. Holy shit. Walker Kessler is 5,500 on DK and 7,600 on FanDuel. You cannot play Walker Kessler on FanDuel ever. He looks a lot better on DK. I will probably not have much of Utah. I think the only guy that shows up in my lineups today is probably Lauri Markkanen. Yeah, S&P. That's another good point. Looney played, Peyton played, Moody played, Anderson, Melton, Hield, Pajemski. They played a billion dudes. Hector, people had Josh Giddey because it doesn't matter if he stinks. People have salaries. I don't have anything else here for Golden State and Utah. I do want to hit Tyrone Fetterman's super chat. He said, not much, but I appreciate you covering both sites. I'm happy to. Look, FanDuel has created contests again that aren't shitty. So I'm playing again on FanDuel, and I'm back to covering FanDuel. They gave up covering or caring about the NBA for a couple years. So now that they seem to care again, I care again. All right, 2 to go, 7 minutes. Phoenix and the Lakers. Suns are 1.5-point dogs in LA, 223 total. Not a lot going on for Phoenix. Highest owned guy on both sites is Tyus Jones at 4%. I think this is a really nice spot if like Steph gets ruled out to try and soak up your Durants and your Bookers and your Beals. They're unowned. 2% Durant, 2% Booker, 3% Beal. I think all three of those guys are excellent tournament plays today. They're unowned. You want to build out a chalky lineup, take one of the chalkiest players that are pay-ups and swap to Durant or Booker or Beal. I like that a lot. These guys shouldn't be 2% owned. I think they should all be like 7 or 8. And I like that value. CG, randomness. Shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter all that much. But I don't recommend playing anything from Phoenix other than to be contrarian. DraftKings and FanDuel for the Lakers, though. We have LeBron 36% owned on DK and 24% owned on FanDuel. I will run away from that as fast as I possibly can. I'll be long gone. I don't agree with it at all. I think it's way too high. I don't see it. I don't know why he would be pulling that much ownership. I really don't. I really, really don't. And like my projections aren't that wildly different from the betting markets. I have him projected for 22, 8, and 7. That is way too much ownership on LeBron. AD is unowned. He's like the pay up to be contrarian option. I have him 14% optimal on DraftKings, 11 on FanDuel. He's 5 and 2%. Austin Reeves is pulling 19% ownership on DK. I think that's way more correct than LeBron ownership. I'll have a bunch of Reeves. I tend to like Russell pretty regularly, and I'll happily go back to him. Don't have much else here, but I think the key takeaway from the Lakers is fading him. I don't believe in that ownership. If it comes down, Completely changes the equation. If LeBron's 30 plus, he's going to be my biggest fade today. King Govan. Oh, yeah. Good call on Julian Champagny yesterday, because if I didn't watch this show, there's no way he would have been on my lineup. That was my biggest play yesterday. If I got anything right yesterday, it was definitely Julian Champagny. Like I said, he was in over 50% of my lineups on FanDuel. That's the one thing that I'm pretty happy about. Final game. One last time, hit that like button. Don't forget, last reminder, Tip-Off 24 is the promo code, our NBA core package for $1. You'll get it through October 29th. You can cancel at any time. If you hate it, you'll only be out $1. Get projections, ownership, Sims tools, single lineup sim, contest generator, everything you're looking for. You get it for $1. Link in the description. Final game, guys. Thank you for being here. Boogies. Yes, play Reeves. Play Reeves. New Orleans Pelicans, Portland Trailblazers. Pels are 5.5-point favorites in Portland, 218 total. As I look at this one, we should have Zion back. He is not even on the injury report. However, we're definitely not going to have DeJounte Murray, who's probably going to be out for about 6 weeks with a broken hand. 18% ownership coming into Zion on DraftKings. 12 on FanDuel. I think that's perfectly warranted. Happy to get to Zion. Clearly looks like the best play from New Orleans. Oddly enough, though, I don't think that I'm going to get to much else. I'm not going to get to Tice. I don't think there's enough minutes. I don't think I'm going to get to Yves Missi. I don't think there's enough minutes. CJ looks better on FanDuel than he does on DraftKings. He's getting a little bit of love there. I'm okay with that. I'm not all that enamored in Brandon Ingram or Herb Jones. I think Jordan Hawkins is going to look a little bit worse now that Zion's back. Somehow those two guys are like linked a bit. I don't like the Pels. I thought I would have liked the Pels. Like, given no Murray, I thought this would have looked a lot better, but just getting Zion back kind of eats that value. And then on Portland, I mean, we're not playing any of these goobers. No Shaden Sharp, no Matisse Thybulle, no Rob Williams. Highest owned guy from Portland on DraftKings is 4% to Ayton. It's 7% to Jeremy Grant on FanDuel. Now, I definitely think these guys are underowned on FanDuel. I think Simons and Grant and Ayton should all be around 10%, not 5%. But these aren't big stands. If you want anything, I do think Anthony Simons on DK at 3% is a really nice tournament play. I think he's getting a little underrepresented. Same situation for Toumani Camara. He's 1% owned. I love him. I had him 9% optimal, 4,400, shooting guard, small forward eligible, starting over Scoot. Very happy to get to the value of Camara. You don't want to go too crazy, but the fact that he's unowned, like if he's, let's say 1% is wrong and he's 4, I'm more than okay having like 12 to 15. I like them a lot in the opener, and I like them a lot here. Big facts. Those are big facts. 9:58:50, man. We got it with a minute to go. Another strategy show in the books. We're right back here on Monday. We've got NFL strategy show coming up next. You get me for the deeper dive. I'll have DK contenders out on our YouTube channel in the next hour. Then check my Twitter handle at Josh Engleman. I finally have my FanDuel contenders ready. I will drop that in text format as a tweet coming out in about an hour, so you guys can check out my favorite plays on FanDuel. Guys, it's been great being here. Hit the like button on your way out the door. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. And go watch the NFL Strategy Show. Man, I love doing this. First week in the books for the Strategy Show. But we're not going anywhere until April.